Hey everybody, welcome back to NetTuts. Today we're going to be taking a look at post excerpts with PHP. So if you've ever read a blog and noticed that with each blog maybe it'll display 100 or 200 characters and then a little ... How can you do that with PHP and MySQL? I'm going to show you exactly how they accomplish that today. Okay, so I'm going to go into my database manager, Queryus. You can use PHPMyAdmin if you like. And I've just created a database called DB and a table called posts. Very, very simple. It has an ID that auto-increments, a title, and a body. So the most minimal form of a blog that you can possibly get. So if we wanted to query this table, we could just do something like select star from posts. All right. Now, if we want to get an excerpt, we can actually use a function with MySQL called left. So, and also try not to use star too much. It can be a bit of a nightmare for maintenance. So instead we could do ID, title, body. And that's going to be quicker, especially if you don't need to select from every single column. Okay, so in addition to body, we want to also create a temporary column that will only contain 100 characters of the body. All right, so we're going to use the left function. And first it wants to know, okay, which column? The body column. And second parameter, how many characters to grab? 100. And now you can see we've created another one. So just to make sure you can tell the difference, let's change it to 10. And now you can see this column only grabs 10 characters from the body. But you can also see now that we've done this, it's changed the name to left body 10. So if we want to change this, maybe give it a name of excerpt, we can do as excerpt. Okay, and now you can see we got exactly what we want. So we're going to change this to 100 characters. And now we have an ID, a title, 100 characters of the body, and then the full form of the body. All right, pretty cool. So let's keep that in mind. And next, let's go into our project. And with PHP, we're going to query this database. So I'm going to open this up. I have a blank index.php page. And let's get prepared statements. Okay, I'm going to go over all this with you. We're using PHP MySQL Improved, which is going to be faster, along with prepared statements. Prepared statements are really the way to go, especially if you're doing heavy loads, and also protects you against things like SQL injection, so it's very helpful. Okay, so first it wants to know with the MySQLi class, we need to pass in the host, the username, the password, and the database to select from. So I'm working off localhost, so that's root, and the name of the database is DB. If it does not connect to that, let's die and just say there was a problem. Okay, next we need to prepare our query. And this is where we can grab the query that we created right here. So go in here and prepare this query. Okay, select ID, title, left as excerpt, body from posts. Or if there was a problem, maybe we tried to select from a column that doesn't exist, we'll die and just say there was a problem preparing the query. Okay. So next, we need to actually execute this query. All right. Now, to bind results, we're going to bind them to a variable. So if you're selecting ID, title, body, for instance, then you would need to have an ID, title, body. So for example, if you were selecting maybe 4 columns and you only had 2 variables here, an error would be thrown because you need each column to be represented within bind results. So we'll do ID, title. And you can see here we have 1, 2, 3, 4. So those all 4 need to be represented. And these can be whatever you want, however you want to name them. That'll be fine for me. And make sure we add a comma there. Okay, so now that we've bound the results, we need to filter through all of these results. So we're saying while create a variable called row, and that's equal to the specific row from the database. So we're just kind of doing a while statement where we filter through all of the rows from the database. 1, and then it goes through again. So while you're filtering through these variables will represent their the table's respective values. So title within here will be equal to my new article, and then the next time it goes through, title will be equal to 1 more post, and the same for all of these. Excerpt will be equal to this one, and then it'll go through again, and excerpt will be equal to the next value. So, you know, we're keeping this very simple. We don't even have a real page here, but we'll echo out the title and then excerpt. All right, let's see how that works. Let's go ahead. We're just doing this all procedural. Let's go and run the file. And now we get the title And now you can see we're getting just the shortened 100 character form. If you want to change this to body, you can see this will be the full contents of the posting. Cool. So let's change that to excerpt, but there is one problem here, and we did luck out, but what if we go back to here, and let's change this to, I don't know, 95. We're going to get 95 characters. Now you can see that we end every once in a while in the middle of the word, so that looks strange, right? So what we need to do is make sure that the last word we get, it's a little hard to explain. Once we get the 100 characters, we need to make sure that it ends on a complete word, right? So the way we can do that's a little bit of trickery. We're going to go into here, and we need to kind of use something called strrpoz. So if we want to look that up real quick, PHP strrpoz, POS. String position. And what this does is it finds the last occurrence of a character in a string. So this is exactly what we want. What we should do is find the last occurrence of a space, and that will be right behind or right after the last word that we want. So in this case, we would want it to end right here. So we'll find the last occurrence of a space and record that. Okay, that's a very helpful function. So we'll do that right now. While row equals statement fetch, we can do something like excerpt. Oh, sorry, my computer's freezing up a bit. Okay, excerpt is going to be equal to, or actually let's create something called space. And like I said, this is going to be equal to the very last space. Okay, so you can see it accepts a total of 3 parameters. We're going to pass in 2. The first one is going to be excerpt. This is what we're working with. And then we're going to look for, what are we looking for? A single space. So this will find the very last space from this, the value of this variable, and it's going to assign that index to space. So now if I echo space, let's come back. You're going to see 93, 93. Okay, because these are the exact, it's the exact same value. So if this was a different blog post, this might be 96 or 98. Okay, cool. So now what we need to do is rather than just echoing out excerpt, we can echo out another function, and this will be substring. All right, so let's go ahead and find out what that does. Whoops, PHP. String. And now what this is going to do is it returns a portion of a string. So you can see you can set a start and an end. So if I come back here, we're going to say echo substring, and it's going to start, we're going to be working with this excerpt variable again, and we're going to start at the very beginning, and we're going to end at space. Okay, so hopefully this makes sense. This function echoes out only a portion of a string, in this case the excerpt string. We're beginning at 0, or the very first character, and we're only going to echo out the characters up to whatever space is equal to. I can say, this makes it easier, last space index, and then change that. And now, if I go back, let's copy this, new page, and you can see in the first instance, it echoes all that, and then you get that L, but in the next one, we end right there. Really helpful, right? So in blogs that you usually see some kind of period at the very end, so we can add that as well. Easy peasy. Okay, so why don't we, I don't want to do too much, but if you're brand new to kind of creating blogs, if you want to get a feel for how you would actually do this, let's go ahead and like I said, I don't even have a full page here. So remember, we're just experimenting right now. You would need to add your doc type and your beginning HTML and all that. Okay, so echo title, why don't we do something like this? We're also going to add an anchor tag, and this will link to a new page. So if you're familiar with WordPress or anything like that, why don't we create a new PHP file, and this will be called single.php. All right, and so single.php will be responsible for displaying the entire post. All right, so now we're going to direct, when they click on the title, we're going to direct to this single.php, and this will be a template that'll display every single post. But we need a way to identify the post that we want. Well, we know that every single posting has its own unique ID that can't be duplicated. So now we can add that in the query string. ID equals ID. So if I come back, refresh the page, and I hover over, and of course I need to PHP echo ID. Now if I hover over it, you'll see at the very bottom, right here, you'll see ID equals 1, ID equals 2. So that's excellent because now we can trigger the specific posting that we want to grab. Cool. So if I click on this, we're now at single.php and we've passed the ID of the posting that we want to display on the page. All right, let's go back here. And that's totally fine for this total example. But one more thing we might want to do really quickly is usually you'll have an option to click on the little 2 periods. Those will be clickable as well, so we can add that. And this will be single.php. We're pretty much going to do the exact same thing. ID equals ID. Give me just a moment. Let's go ahead and when you use double quotes and you wrap it around, you can embed variables like ID, but if you're using single quotes, you cannot. So I'm just going to change this around. That should fix it. Yeah, ID equals 2, ID equals 1. So we get the same effect. If I click here, okay, so good deal. Now we can go over. And like I said, you want to be careful about putting all of this into every single page. It would be smarter to create something like a database class, but for this example, it'll be fine. All right, so I'm going to copy all of this in, and if I refresh the page, we get the exact same thing as the other page. But that's not what we want. For this page, we only want to select ID title. We don't need an excerpt anymore because we're displaying the entire posting. So select ID title body from posts where the post ID is equal to whatever was passed through in the query string, in this case ID. So I can do ID equals get ID, and let's go ahead and echo out ID. And let's just embed that right now. So we're going to get an error, don't worry about that, but you can see what I echoed out here was 2. That's the ID. So if you also want to do something like get type, if you use JavaScript, this would be the same as using type of. So you get string. We want to make sure, just for a little bit of added security, let's make sure that this value is an integer, right? So what we could do here is get type. Whoops, let's get rid of all that. And we're going to make sure we bind it, and it has to be an integer. And then if you do it again, get type, it's been bound to an integer. Okay, so now we're saying, let's go to our query, prepare, select ID, title, body from post, where ID equals whatever that post ID is. And then we're going to bind the results, ID, title, no more excerpt. So you can see that an error was thrown because we're only selecting from 3 columns in this case, but we're trying to bind results to 4 columns and it's getting confused. Number of bind variables doesn't match. So a quick note here is if you're ever building a database class, this becomes a huge pain in the butt because you won't always know how many results or how many rows or columns are being returned from the database, especially if somebody's using your database class. So there is a way around that. I did write about that a little bit here if you want to just go to this URL or follow NetTuts on Sniffler. I do have a little piece right here that will get around that for you, but I actually will be creating a video tutorial on how to fix that as well. Anyhow, for now, it's fine if we just represent these with 3 variables, ID, title, and body. Refresh the page, and we have undefined variable excerpt on line 10. Just go back, single on line 10, and of course we don't need that. And we can just echo, get rid of all that, echo. See if I missed anything else, and now we get that specific posting. So let's try it out. All right, we're going to go to My New Article, I'll click on it, and now it brings us to the entire posting. And this is really the extent of how a blog works. You can have additional tables for comments that will have that'll connect to these rows, but it's really as simple as that. So I wanted to show you how to use the left function for your MySQL queries. I wanted to show you how to create just the very beginnings of a blog, and I wanted to show you how to create excerpts with PHP by using this little trick right here where you use a mixture of string rpose to get the last space, and then you echo out a portion of that value from 0 to that last space, and that's how you get those periods. So that's all we're going to do today. I hope this helped you, and if you have any questions, always feel free to let me know, or you can email us at net.tutsplus.com. As always, for the best tips, tutorials, and screencasts available on the web, always subscribe to NetTuts, and you can do it right here. All right, bye.